Give a warm welcome to Alex Lee.
Hi, everyone. Good to see that some of us made it up in the morning after last night. It was a lot of fun, so no worries. So, my name is Alex, and I work for the Human Rights Foundation. I work for Alex Gladstein, the other Alex at Human Rights Foundation that some of you may know. And in today's presentation, I just wanted to give a quick overview of what is the Human Rights Foundation, why human rights matter in general, why Bitcoin matters for human rights, and then give a little pitch on the Bitcoin Development Fund at the end. So, what is the Human Rights Foundation? The Human Rights Foundation, we're a 501c3 based in the US. And what we do is we fight for human rights and civil liberties in authoritarian countries. And what separates us from other nonprofits is our exclusive focus on authoritarian and closed societies. So a lot of other human rights organizations that you may know of, like Amnesty or Human Rights First, they spend a lot of their time working on improving human rights in the US, Canada, liberal democracies. And while that work is very admirable and much needed, we as an organization focus exclusively on authoritarian and closed societies because we believe that every dollar that we spend in the US or Canada is one less dollar that's spent in like North Korea or Sudan. So that's why we have a laser focused mission on focusing on the worst of the worst. And a lot of us may not know this, but right now, over half the world lives in an authoritarian or closed society. And what that means is over half the world lives somewhere where criticizing your government could get you thrown in jail. Something as simple as organizing a small protest or rally outside a government building could get you disappeared. And that's a huge problem. And that's a huge problem not because all of us in Bitcoin who care about freedom and should care about freedom should think it's wrong that people who just exercise freedom of speech or freedom of religion are oppressed, but it's also because authoritarianism is actually at the root of much of the world's problems today. So authoritarianism is responsible for 97% of the world's refugees. It's responsible for 79% of active conflicts in the world today. 18 out of 20 countries with the worst access to drinking water are authoritarian regimes. 90% of the lowest ranked countries in combating human trafficking are authoritarian regimes. And nine of the world's top 10 poorest countries are authoritarian regimes. And if you think about it, that makes intuitive sense because authoritarianism removes checks and balances on power. When you have someone who's a terrible leader, if you don't have free and fair elections, a free and open press, a flourishing civil society, you don't have the mechanisms to remove bad governments and bad governance from the system, right? And a lot of the people, we in the human rights world recognize that authoritarianism is at the root of many of the world's problems. But what many people in the human rights world fail to recognize that monetary freedom is also essential to human rights and freedom in general. So the problem today is that money is a weaponized tool of authoritarian regimes, right? Authoritarian regimes have figured out that, hey, if we can control people's money, we can control people themselves. Oftentimes, what's more effective than arresting someone for criticizing the government or throwing them in a gulag is just, hey, freezing their bank account. And once their bank account is frozen, they can no longer effectively fundraise and receive donations to power their movements. They can no longer do something simple like use a credit card to just pay for their website. They can't pay for food, right? It just makes life a lot more difficult. And I just put up two examples here. There are millions of them on the internet. One from Hong Kong, where Hong Kong activists fighting for freedom learned the hard way that using traditional banking rails may not be very reliable. And the Hong Kong Free Press actually used to use BitPay to receive Bitcoin donations, but then after BitPay received some pressure from some people, they stopped processing Bitcoin donations for the Hong Kong Free Press, which is why they switched to BTC Pay, which is much superior. So that's good. And Alexei Navalny, a famous Russian dissident, had his bank accounts frozen and his flat seized. So yeah, it sucks. And that's what happens in authoritarian regimes when you criticize the government. And one solution to that is Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is not the only solution to all of the world's problems, but Bitcoin is one essential component of financial freedom, right? Bitcoin offers a censorship-resistant, decentralized way of receiving money from anyone in the world. And that's just kind of cool, right? Like, it's kind of cool that when there are people protesting against police brutality in Nigeria, I, in the US, can just open up my Moon Wallet or Blue Wallet and send some sats over to support someone 5,000 miles away, right? That's pretty cool. And in Belarus, nonprofits have been using Bitcoin to help power local resistance to the Belarusian dictator, Lukashenko. So Bitcoin is one small solution to this problem. And Bitcoin can be the solution because it's decentralized, because it's censorship resistant, because nobody or no one entity can control it. So just to recap a little bit, human rights defenders are facing increasing financial repression. While the Bitcoin network and its app ecosystem is continually improving, there's much work to be done. And that's why we at the Human Rights Foundation have the Bitcoin Development Fund. We give grants to open source developers working in the Bitcoin ecosystem with a focus on making the Bitcoin ecosystem and Bitcoin apps more usable for human rights activists and people in general. Some examples of previous grant recipients here: Seed Signer, great man, helping you build your own cold storage solutions. Sphinx, Calvin Kim, he's working on Utrixo, making running a node less storage intensive, and just, yeah, we give a lot of money out. And so, yeah, if you're an open source dev or know an open source dev who's working on Bitcoin and is looking for funding and looking for a way to get funded, I'm here. We'd love to give money. And yeah, thank you. Just talk to me if you're interested or email us at dev.fund@href.org. Thank you.